Welcome to the Duckpin Podcast with your host, Brian Griffiths. And now, here's Brian.
Not many people know this, but Maryland has not had a professional soccer team in over a decade now, and that is changing with the 2021 season. Joining us on this week's episode of the show, the Vice President and Director of Operations of Maryland Bobcats FC, Evan Raimist. Evan, thanks for joining us on this week's show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. It's always great when we have new teams come in and we get a new opportunity to see a new sport here in Maryland without having to go see those guys in DC.
Exactly.
But first, let's talk a little bit about you and kind of how you wound up in this position as the VP and Director of Operations for Maryland Bobcats.
Yeah, it's a kind of a weird, windy story. My original plan and goals when I joined this club was not to be in the front office. It was to play. So I joined the club 4 years ago now, and I joined as a player. I had just graduated college. I thought I'd be done playing after I was playing in college. And like 2 weeks after I got done, I was like, I got to get out and play again. And it's funny that I'm even hooked up with this club because the only reason that I'm involved at all is because on the free agent page for the league that the club was in, our now owner it just happened to be the first person to send me an email. So that that one email kind of changed the history of what I was going to be doing. But yeah, started as a player, and as the club was growing, the club was doing better and better on the field, getting wins and stuff like that, and getting better players, the ownership and some of the players, but the owner, well, I use the term ownership because back then it wasn't ownership. It was just the guys in charge. They were like, hey, let's try to build something. Let's try to do something better now. And, it was like a 6-hour bus trip up to Rochester, New York. And, I was half asleep and I heard them up front being like, hey, we wish we could advertise. We wish we could market, kind of put something behind what we're doing on the field. And I kind of half asleep, wake up. And at the time, actually up until this month, I worked in an ad agency in Baltimore. So I kind of perked up, I was like, hey guys, this is what I do for my day job. This is what I do day in, day out. If you would have told me this 6 months ago, we could have been much farther along. But from there, it ballooned into more and more things needing to get done for the club, and me saying yes to more and more things. And it's funny, my first day as a full-time employee of the club was this month. So this is kind of a new full-time job for me, although it's been a full-time job for the last year or so. It's just been on the side. I'm definitely not good enough to play on our team now. So I'm totally in the front office now.
Well, that's a fun story. It's not the tragic story that you kind of laid it out. It's kind of, you saw what was going on, and you took the skills you had, and you're making the most of it, to jump from, I think a lot of us would rather jump from a day job, an office job to professional sports management. God knows I would.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about the club now. And you kind of hinted at it as you were talking there about your history with the club. Maryland Bobcats were not always a professional club. This season, the first season in the National Independent Soccer Association. So kind of talk about that transition from kind of what's a club team, just a group of guys getting together to play soccer, to what's now a professional operation.
Yeah. And, that's the coolest part of being a part of this club. And this is, a dream, I think that every club across the world has. It's a little bit harder to do in the US because of all the rules that you have to jump through to go pro. But yeah, the club is over 10 years old now. Was started by our now owners, as a way to keep in touch after college. It was a bunch of guys that met in college that, like soccer, love soccer, and said, hey, let's put a team together. So, you graduate, you get jobs, you start families, it was a way for them once a week to come together, hang out, play some soccer. And yeah, with that, this player had this friend that he played with, so he brought him, and this player had two other friends that he played with, and the team, over the course of 5-6 years, just got better and better and better and better. It also went through about 5 name changes before we got to Maryland Bobcats. And yeah, it really went from a Sunday league team that was just for fun. It was to keep guys in touch, to, hey, we got a pretty good team, let's try to compete a little bit more, to, hey, we know we got a good team, let's go win some stuff, to, a high level amateur team in Maryland. And then, we joined a national league, the UPSL, in 2019, and had some success there, won a national championship last year. And then this year, yeah, bringing pro soccer. And it really was, we've gotten a lot of buzz, and people have started to take stock of us over the last year and a half. But it really has been 10 years that this club has been building and preparing itself for the next step. And like you said at the start, like, Maryland hasn't had a pro team in 10 plus years. And it was always kind of in the back of our ownership's mind that they wanted to bring pro soccer to this state. They didn't know how, when, what it looked like, but that was kind of their goal. And so, for the club to grow as it has, and in my opinion, take the steps at the perfect time for the club, kind of each step that we made. It's really, really cool to be able to bring pro soccer to Maryland. I'm born and raised in Maryland, so I never really had a pro team in the state to call my own. And between all the really high level youth clubs and high schools and colleges in the area, for this state not to have a pro team is crazy to me. And we're starting to announce our first pro roster, and 9 of the 11 players that we've announced that we've signed are all from the area. So it really is guys that live here, that have played here, that grew up here, that we're trying to showcase their talent and say, look, Maryland, DC, Virginia, we can compete with the rest of the country, because there's so many good players here.
Yeah, it's awesome having that local collection, collection of talent, and that connection to the area. One of the things you did mention, of course, was how much more difficult it is to go pro in the U.S. as opposed to where it is in other parts of the world. Obviously, relegation in soccer. I'm a part owner, one of many part owners of FC Pinzgau out in Austria. And obviously we're looking to go eventually down the road to graduate to the Austrian Bundesliga. And it's just not possible under the American soccer pyramid. So just kind of, how much more difficult was it, because we don't have that relegation system in the US soccer pyramid, to make that transition from amateur team to pro team?
Yeah, I mean, you got the next 3 or 4 hours we're going to talk on this, right? I could talk on this all night. No, it's way harder, right? And for a lot of reasons, in my opinion, it's worse, right? You don't necessarily go pro based on being a good team, being a good club, making good decisions on and off the field that puts your club up for success. It's how much money you have, right? And that's one of the reasons that we were drawn to NISA. NISA is kind of taking a different approach to soccer in this country. They want it to be open. They want every small town in the country to have their own club, right? Whether it's down the line, maybe D1 pro, D2, D3, semi-pro, Sunday. They want every town, a little small town in the country to have a club. And that's the way it is in Austria, in England, in Germany, in Mexico, in Brazil. And part of the reasons that I think Americans flock to EPL, Bundesliga, leagues like that is, it is, if you're a terrible team, you're going to go down. But if you're an amateur team, semi-pro team that's going to start, sure, you're not going to get to the EPL in 2 years, but 10, 12, 13 years, you could be playing some really high level soccer because your community got behind you, and because you sold more tickets so you could get better players, and you brought in the right coach, and it made the team better. And it's that excitement of being able to get behind your team and watch them, go up and down, and the heartbreak and the excitement of going up. And it is a lot harder to start a professional team in this country. That being said, NISA is again, that's part of the reason we were drawn to them is they're working, and their ideas about soccer and how it should be run kind of fit with ours and how we think about it. And you still have to get through US soccer's professional league standards, which there's different ones from D1, D2, D3 Pro. We're a D3 Pro, so the net worth of your owner is lower than a D1. The capacity of your stadium can be lower than D1. But I think the thing that NISA is starting to prove and maybe can build on, right, is just because you're a D3 league, right, doesn't necessarily mean you have to act like a D3 league. Like, technically, there's nothing stopping any of the clubs in our league from saying we're going to have a $300 million payroll and pay our players $2 million a year. There's nothing saying they can't do that. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but it is really hard to become a pro team. And even that jump from amateur to pro, we were kind of operating as professionally as we could for the last year and a half, in terms of, how we train, what we expected from our players, what we expected from the front office, what we expected when we travel, that kind of stuff, because again, we knew it was going to come sometime. But it is still, that jump is still big. And if you have a good team on the field, I think a lot of things that a lot of high level amateur clubs miss in this country is the off the field stuff. Maybe it is just players that are kind of taking control of scheduling games, getting guys places, and they can win tons of games. But then when it comes time to, okay, what's your front office look like? Can you support that next step? That's where I think is hard for a lot of clubs. And I understand it because we did it, and it's a ton of work, and there has to be, with us, there's a really good core group of people that have been with the club for, between 3 and 10 years that are really behind the project. But it was a process to go pro, and is definitely not easy.
Let's talk a little bit about, you talk about the support behind the team, and obviously as the director of operations and the vice president, that's something that is obviously integral, you are integral with. So kind of walk people through kind of the day, because I think when a lot of people think of somebody in your role, the first thing they're going to think of is MLS or baseball or the NFL and what the general manager is doing and all the trades and all the other stuff, when it's probably a little bit, whereas it's a lot more hands-on with the day-to-day on the field stuff too. So, and that end, there's kind of 3 different phases to that. You've got the kind of the postseason, you've got, the regular season, you got the game day operations. So just help, walk through some of the myriad of tasks that kind of fall on your plate.
Yeah. To be honest, the first thing I think of when I think like VP or GM is, Jerry Jones and his box at Dallas Cowboys Stadium, just hanging out. And I can promise you our level is not like that. No, to be honest, that's why I love doing this role at this club, is I really do get to touch every single part of our club, from, I know all our players' first name, last names, their brothers, their parents. I know all our players very personally, but that's because I have to work so closely with them. And it's everything from, making sure they have a shirt to wear to train in, to getting our logos put on their sweatsuit. But it's also, can we get sponsorships? Can we get partners in the community that we can work with, not just to help our club, but to help them too. It's working with the leagues and writing our press releases and social media. And it really is like, if there's something that goes on with our club, I probably play a role. Not saying, our assistant coach, one of our assistant coaches is also our graphic designer, who is fantastic and could probably make a living just doing that. But it really is, at this level, it's, can you get people that can do more than one thing, that are willing to learn, to go the extra mile? But, for me, it's a lot of emails with, again, from sponsors to gear providers to designers to the leagues that we're in, to players, to making sure that we have contracts signed and they're uploaded in the right portal so that US Soccer can grab them. It really is kind of a whatever needs to get done. Like, let's find a way to get done. And games. Game day ops. It's fun, and my goal is to make it so that our players and staff don't have to worry about anything, right? They show up, they get ready to play, they play, and they go home, hopefully after a win. But it really is like all hands on deck. Let's try to think of the smallest detail before the game, so that we don't have to do that, kind of on the fly. And again, we're not hosting games at M&T Bank Stadium or Camden Yards, so it's not like we're getting 70,000 people that are going to show up. So to that point, it's easier, but at the same time, it's a much smaller staff. But again, like the people that we have at this club, I can't say enough good things. That a bunch of people that don't get paid, that do it because they love the club, they love the project, they love soccer, and they want to help. To players kind of like myself that either have gotten too old, have gotten hurt too many times, or really just have an interest in doing stuff off of the field, that step up, do things that need to get done. But I think my favorite part of this job is just the wide range of stuff that I get to do, and the people I get to talk to, from inside the club to outside the club, to NISA, to the EPSL, to US Soccer, to our sponsors, to our community partners, to our youth club, and the kids that we coach, and their parents and their families. It really is fun, and I love talking to people, and I love telling people about this project and this club, and it really is kind of, if you can think of something we do during the day, I probably have some way of touching it, but that's what needs to get done.
Let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned, the stadium. Obviously, you guys are playing out at the Soccerplex out in Montgomery County, out in Boyd's. Obviously, one thing that makes that facility attractive, soccer-specific facility, it's got the seats, the lights, and a very high-level field. I know that United and the Spirit and a couple other teams have played high-level matches on that pitch. What can somebody expect? Actually, I guess I got two questions here. One, what can somebody expect who goes to a game at the Soccerplex to watch the Bobcats play? And secondly, how does that location, being in Montgomery County, with as rich of both a rich ethnic diversity, with a lot of soccer fans in Montgomery County, and also a lot of, as you mentioned, former players who are from Montgomery County, soccer very prevalent in the county. How are you guys going to be able to maximize those populations in turning out support for the club?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what a game looks like, I think first and foremost, NISA as a league, and the teams that are in it, and the clubs that are in it, the players that are in it, in my opinion, it's very different from the USL MLS kind of games in that all the teams play like a pretty different style of soccer. It's not kind of all one and they're all trying to get really good at that one way of playing. It really is, we play a certain way. Chattanooga plays one way. Detroit City plays one way, and we went down to Chattanooga in October to play them. It's kind of like our last game of 2020, and even the two halves, right? The first half, we played one way, they played the other way, and coming out of halftime, both teams completely switched, and it's really, it's how I think soccer should be played. It's fun soccer. It's not kick and run. It's not let's park the bus. It's how can we figure out how to best play around our opponent. And we gotta have a couple beers with the coach and staff at Chattanooga afterwards, and he said the same thing. He's like, look, like that was a great game because it was me trying to adjust to what you guys were doing, you guys adjusting to what we were doing, and it really is, I hope and I think gonna be some fun soccer. Not to mention that we have so many guys from the area that people can come to a game, and if you follow soccer at the smallest amount, right, you're probably gonna know a name or two. And that's what's so cool, I think, about us building our team this way, is because besides the fact that there will be a pro team, and that's great and good, I think, but there's all these ties to guys that have been playing soccer in this area for 10, 12, 20 years, that are now getting to put their name out there and now getting to play at that higher level. And yeah, you're totally right that Montgomery County is kind of a perfect place for a team, because it is so diverse, both from where people are from, but also kind of backgrounds, but also the income range, right? It is a really diverse county. And again, our club is 100% minority owned, and about, depending on who we pick for our game day roster, 85 to 95% minority players. And that's something that we haven't shied away from, that we've been proud of. And we're giving guys a chance that I think should have been given chances years ago, and I think should be making a lot more money playing somewhere else. But for whatever reason, right, didn't have that much money growing up, so they couldn't play club soccer, so they didn't get scouted for college, so they didn't get a scholarship, so they couldn't play at college. Overlooked for whatever reason, that now we're getting to be able to show and really show how these guys can play. We have already kind of have conversations with the African League in Montgomery County and a bunch of these leagues that are excited that there's going to be a team there to call their own. And just like you said at the start, don't have to go into the other city to watch that team play. But I think that some people, rightfully so, probably say that the location of that stadium is the biggest downfall. And I would agree. It's kind of in a cult, like a neighborhood, basically. It's, you drive through neighborhoods and there's all of a sudden this big complex. But at the same time, there are so many people that love soccer. And it doesn't really matter, what level, they just want to come see soccer. And I think, to add on top of that is we're giving them a club that, they can really get behind, because it's Maryland, right? It's not DC, it's not Virginia. And again, we do have so many guys, which I keep saying, but so many guys that have already played in this area, from this area, for so many years, that, I already know a couple of our players have like hundreds of people, like, how can we get tickets? How can we get tickets? So no, I hope that our first home game is packed and we can get as many people there as we can. And it's going to be a fun season. And I hope that there is fans there when we kick off.
We'll talk about that in a second. One last thing I wanted to get to before we get to that, though, was kind of just the geographical footprint of the league is fascinating, because you've got teams. There's 3 teams in California. There's a couple of teams in the Midwest. You've got like the New York area, Maryland, and then Chattanooga and Charlotte. How challenging is that geography for schedule making, and how challenging is that? Because I know this is going to wind up on your plate somehow. The travel piece of all of this. Yeah,
it's a new league. It's a growing league, and all the teams, especially the teams, right, this is our first year there. This is like the league's technically heading into the 3rd calendar year, so 100% of the teams that joined and kind of formed the league, they knew that at the start travel was going to be tough, right? That travel was going to be one of those pieces that, hey, let's prove to people that this is a good league, a fun league, that we have good quality players, that our clubs can put good quality events. Then let's work on getting more solid teams into the league. And yeah, for us, we're kind of lucky. I think this kind of Northeast is, and it is like that for most sports, right? But we do have the shortest, right? We can drive to the New York teams. We can and did drive to Chattanooga. Technically could drive to Detroit. But then yeah, the 3 West Coast teams and then Charlotte. It's hard because, especially for the California teams and for kind of those Midwest teams, they maybe only get 1 or 2 games that they can drive to, and the rest are flights, right? And that's tough. But they've announced the Rochester team in New York, the Chicago NISA they announced. So there's more that I can't talk more about potentially coming down the pipes. But it's the league is slowly growing, and I think growing with the right clubs, and I'm biased because we're a new club, but they're growing with the right clubs. And I think, again, earlier you asked about that step from amateur to pro, knowing that travel, but the cost, the time, the logistics, that's part of that. You have to be prepped for that next step. It's no longer driving 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hours, and that's all of your games. It's we got 2 cross country flights, we've got 2 15-hour drives, and then we got kind of those closer games. But one thing that about NISA that I've loved is all the clubs are willing to help, right? They want to see the other clubs succeed, and in turn the league, right? And not saying that we give secrets away, and I'm not saying that it's all hand-holdy. No, it's not. But it really is. I can't say enough about the other clubs and kind of the other people doing my job at those clubs that I've been able to reach out to and bounce questions, ideas. Hey, what do you guys do for jerseys? What do you guys do for meals on the road? So it's definitely a challenge. But as the league continues to grow and expand, and NISA's ultimate goal is let's have 200 teams across the country and four divisions, and the lowest division is going to be all in one state. And then as you get higher and go up and down, then you travel more and more. That's the goal and the dream. But it's something that we prep our players for, right? Like, hey, you're going to do some traveling. It's not glamorous. Again, we're a D3 new pro soccer team launching during a pandemic. Like, it's not first class, it's not charter flights. But it's guys at this level want to play soccer, and that's it. They want to play because they love playing the game. And it's just, making sure we can make that as easy as possible for them so they can play their best.
And that is definitely a worthwhile endeavor. If people want tickets, people want to support the team, sponsor the team, want to give you money somehow, how can they do that?
Yeah, a couple ways. So tickets, ticket packages are actually going to go on sale next month. So in March, our kind of home games are going to start in August, potentially in July. But season tickets, single game tickets, those are all going to go on sale next month. But our website has all the other stuff, right? It has our club shop, which we actually just released our home jersey for this year, which in my opinion, I'm very biased, but is awesome. It actually got released at noon today. That's there. We have scarves, we have t-shirts, we have beanies, we have baseball hats. We got some pretty cool stuff that we do try to keep Maryland, right? We have 410 area code shirts, 301-2240. But at the same time, on the website, all our contact stuff is there. So our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, but also my email, which is evan@marylandbobcatsfc.com. And you can email me from anything from sponsorships to players want to try out, to you want to say, hey, your team's the best. You want to say, hey, your team's the worst. I don't care. I'm always open. I love emails. And there's also our kind of general info at marylandbobcatsfc.com. But there's also our youth club, and our youth info is all on there too. And part of the cool part about our youth club is that we are one of the very few teams in the country, but definitely in this state and area that, we have a pro team on top of it, youth team. And we've already had 3 or 4 of our youth players come up and train with our first team. 2 of them did really well. 2 of them did really, really well. And that's something that we want to offer our kids, right? They have a legitimate shot to, train with a pro team, to be on the bench for a program, to get to travel. Even if they don't play with our pro team, they can play with our reserve team. But they're, 14, 15, 16-year-old kid can play with 21, 22, 23, 27-year-old guys and see where they stack up, right? And that's something really cool that we can offer. And besides that, right, it's now that our youth players and their families have access to these pro players. And it's not guys on millions of dollars, right? They're not making that much. But, our 2005 boys team this past fall had like 8 players on the first team come out to their tournament, be in the stands, cheering them on, yelling at the ref for them. And that's cool, right? That's what this is all about, is making our community better through soccer. And so to be able to provide that both ways, to have, youth be able to come up to the first team, but also have our pro team players and staff be able to go support the youth club. Because look, we know that 1% maybe of all the youth players we ever have are going to go pro. So it's what can we do to that other 99% that, can make them better for their life ahead. And it's been a really cool ride so far with this youth program, and all that information's on the site too.
Well, definitely sounds like you guys have a lot on your plate. Evan Raimist is the Vice President and Director of Operations for the Maryland Bobcats FC. Evan, best of luck on the pitch. Best of luck at the box office this year. And I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
This has been the Duckpin Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and download